And first up, looking at the biggest news story, and Matt, you wanted to talk about the Dublin riots.
Yeah, I suppose there's a bit of recency bias that happened quite recently, but I think it really points to something that's been going on for quite a while now. Maybe it's the culmination of something that was developing. And even when we see things like the fire in the hotel in Galway this weekend, far from the first. These things have been going on for the last few years. And it's difficult discussions, I suppose, to be had in relation to what is going on behind it all, between some people who have concerns that are often been inflamed by those who have bad intentions. We are suffering a lot, and we've seen it, even the things that happened outside the Dáil this year when we had the protests, very ugly protests about politicians going to their place of work, that there are bad actors at play who are trying to whip up bad sentiment, and it means that we have a very big responsibility of politicians to act responsibly. And in fairness, I think the vast majority have done so. But the big issue going into next year is with the independent, or with the local and European elections, particularly with independents, and then the parties, whether they can control, whether you're able to control your candidates to be well-mannered in the way of dealing with this.
Well, Sinn Féin in particular, I think, are in a very difficult position with this.
Why do you think we do? I don't think we would be in a difficult position any more than any of the other parties, Katie. But I think there's a collective responsibility. There's also a government responsibility.
But it's the Sinn Féin vote which seems to have taken a hit as other votes, as the vote is shifting around on this.
Well, I think this is much too serious of an issue to talk about votes, really, or even elections. I think there has been a failure to plan and to see what's happening. And obviously we need more police on the ground as well. But we need better communication, we need better integration, we need all of those things to be addressed. And I don't think there's been proper planning in the way that it could have been to avoid.
I think it is an issue for Sinn Féin because you are the anti-establishment party, the main party of opposition. A lot of people in the opinion polls think have gone to Sinn Féin because you are not the government. But if those people feel you're not speaking for them on an issue such as how we deal with the immigration, then I think you might suffer even more than you have in the opinion polls recently.
And I think we've been clear about that, and I think there's a right way to operate in it.
And you're not going to shift your...
No, we need a whole of government response to what's happening on the ground, and certainly we're not finding one to.
But so I think all the political parties are going to have an issue controlling their candidates.
Okay,
I
need to control
elections.
You now because I need to bring in Evelyn. Evelyn, your biggest news story, no surprise, was the weather.
Yeah, it's 2023 is the warmest year on record globally, but also for Ireland as well, and exceptionally wet. We may well have the wettest year on record, certainly second to 2009, and that has produced a lot of flooding around the country.
Okay, so I mean, we talk about weather, but obviously you talk about climate as well.
Climate, yeah. Globally, I think we all remember the big forest fires across Canada. I mean, literally Canada burned for a month, and that had a knock-on...
And Middleton, we can see there, people are looking at pictures of Middleton floods.
Yeah, and that was actually in part due to exceptionally warm temperatures in the North Atlantic. There's been a marine heat wave, and as you know, our weather comes in from the Atlantic, so a warm sea means more evaporation, more rainfall, and thus we've got exceptionally wet, record-breaking rainfall amounts. Middleton, there was about 80 millimetres in that rainfall event on top of saturated ground from 6 consecutive months with rainfall above average.
Yeah, I think, suppose, hang on to your hats. That's not going to change in the...
No, and it's led indirectly as well to more thunderstorms, which... That's, as you know, twisters or tornadoes come out of thunderstorms. Oh, yeah. So,
the lead from tornado. Whoever thought we'd be looking at that headline?
Well, it's a matter of bad luck where the tornado hits, and thankfully nobody was injured in it, but it can really strike anywhere. But there's been an increase in thunderstorms, again, due to global warming.
OK, bring in Peter Burke now, your political moment of the year.
Yeah, probably recent bias as well, but I think at a time through the attacks, what led to the riots when a very vulnerable community needed support, needed unity, I think it was very disappointing at that time that the opposition decided to go for division, be divisive and put down a motion of no confidence in the government, because I think that's exactly what bad actors in society want. And also, I'm of the view at that time, looking back at
the motion of no confidence in Helen McEntee.
And looking back at the debate in the Dáil, I think, you know, when you bring photograph an individual in the street that obviously has, you know, huge challenges and waved that photograph around the Dáil, not knowing their background. I thought that was an awful day for democracy.
Again, this is the image of the homeless man in Parnell
exactly,
Square.
Yeah, so a vulnerable individual. We don't know his story. Yeah. And also in terms of that particular point in time, I thought, you know, opposition has a responsibility, a huge responsibility to be fair. And at that time when Mary Lou stood up and said that, you know, the government had not been in contact with the school for 2 weeks, you know, I almost thought, you know, what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to achieve here? When we know that's patently not true. I thought that was a very, very unfortunate set of events, which really, you know, stoked division when we needed, you know, our government TDs and our opposition TDs to stand with their community and work with their community.
Do you want to come in on that,
The responsibility of the opposition is to hold government to account. You've had 13 years to get it right in terms of justice and policing. We have less Gardaí on the streets now, less Garda stations than we had 13 years ago. How are they supposed? We saw how vulnerable Gardaí were left in that. We saw how the force in themselves don't have confidence in what's happening. I am sure if it was the other way,
would you do it again if you had a chance?
If it was the other way around, I can be absolutely certain that Fine Gael would have a vote of no confidence if it was a Sinn Féin minister that
you didn't look back on it, because there was off the record Sinn Féin TD's been quoted as saying that he shouldn't have done it.
Well, a paper doesn't refuse ink, but I do think you either have confidence in a system or you don't, and there's too many people that don't have confidence in the system as it is, and I hope it'll prompt things to get better than they have been heretofore in terms of policing.
We were asking about the row of the year, and Rose Conway Walsh, you picked that rolling row, we don't have to call it, between Leo Varadkar and your party leader Mary Lou MacDonald, which kind of erupted again and again through the year. I think we can just have a quick look at one of those interactions.
According to you, Leo Varadkar, it's all going to plan. Now, that's in your world. See, in the real world, where people with their eyes open look and care to see the evidence before them, our young people are really struggling.
Why did you seek to misrepresent what I said? Why did you seek to put words in my mouth? Because you are the great misleader, Deputy MacDonald.
Greatness leader.
I remember that well, and that was when the students were protesting outside the Dáil. So young people wanted to be heard, and they obviously weren't being listened to, and a lot of it was around student accommodation. But I think Leo is struggling to cope with a strong, formidable woman like Mary Lou MacDonald, and every night he seems to dream up another adjective to describe her, to deflect from what's happening. I think it's very interesting to have a strong woman like that holding two men to account in the Dáil, and I hope she will continue on talking common sense and getting the message across and representing people.
I absolutely
Leo
welcome.
can't handle strong women.
I absolutely welcome having a strong woman, and there's more than one strong woman in the opposition, leading an opposition party, and they're doing exceptional work for women in politics. But I think you have to be fair. It comes down to a situation whereby if you're misleading, like saying home ownership had collapsed, Leo took out the census and put the record on the Dáil that it hadn't collapsed. Like saying that a record number of people aren't getting their first mortgage to get the keys to their new home every single week.
Home ownership.
Yeah. It hasn't collapsed.
Matt Cooper.
Ownership has fallen quite dramatically since the turn of the century.
It hasn't collapsed. It went from something like 70% down to 65%.
How would you define collapsed? For people in their 30s?
Currently,
for people in their 30s, Peter Burke.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, but we are given the policies to try and get them the opportunity to buy their new home. And you can see that with the policies between the Help to Buy, 500 first-time buyers getting the keys to their new home every single week. That's progressive policies. But when you have the Leader of the Opposition come in, patently putting misleading facts there and using words and terminology that personalise the debate, I think that does nothing for anyone in the Dáil.
Yeah, and the Taoiseach couldn't even answer if he wanted house prices to come down or not. I mean, that was crazy. So many people can't afford it. Some people can, but so many can't. So many are
That's
gone to
why we have affordable schemes now to really unlock that affordable
Well, you
issue.
see, all of those affordable schemes that you're talking about are the ones, the Help to Buy ones you're talking about. You're saying Help to Buy for some, but how many is it not helping to buy, and how many is it preventing
from buying? There's over 30,000 families who've got the keys to
we won't have the housing debate.
We
won't have the housing debate tonight. I wanted to do a story now that we obviously can't ignore in the studio. That's the RT payment scandal. And let's again look at that memorable moment from the Oireachtas Committee when RT's Adrian Lynch was struggling to understand Matty McGrath's Tipperary brogue.
I'll ask again, who are you lying to? Who are you supposed to serve? Can I just ask one question? Who are we lying to about what?
Loyal to. Loyal.
Loyal to. Loyal.
Sorry.
Jesus.
I didn't accuse you of lying.
Loyal. Well, the absolute number one relationship is with the audience.
Loyal. Evelyn Cusack, you retired, I think, a week before this whole thing blew up. Did you have some advanced knowledge?
Yeah, I wish my forecasts were that good. But I retired on the 1st of June and followed by the warmest June on record in Ireland. So I thought, woo! But that in turn was followed by the wettest July on record as well. But to the point...
I'm sure you were following it
I'm
closely.
afraid so, yeah. I was very disappointed and quite upset over it. And I got to see Oireachtas TV for the first time, which... it was, I'm afraid to say, riveting viewing. I obviously wouldn't have seen it if I wasn't retired. So I think it was like very, very disappointing the whole summer, really.
Yeah, it did go on and on and on. Matt, now I suppose I have to point out at this stage, you are also represented by Noel Kelly.
As I've been pointing out myself on radio quite a lot, yes.
What did you make of it all?
Best unscripted drama that RT has ever produced. I'm not sure the ratings were quite as high as the Late Late Toy Show, but they can't have been that far behind it. The idea that there were people apparently booking tables in pubs during the middle of the day to actually watch what was being broadcast. And it was, by any matter of means, it was very entertaining and perhaps enraging at times. But there is a bigger, more serious issue involved here, and that is the future of RTE. And even those of us who work in the commercial sector realise that you have to have a strong public sector broadcaster, and that is important to do the things that aren't done in the commercial sector. Similarly, there has to be account to the fact that the commercial sector, and this goes into newspapers as well as broadcasters, has had to slim down, has had to take its medicine at times, and perhaps takes it far more quickly than RT has. And we're looking to make sure that whatever help is given to RT is not to the detriment of the competition provided by the commercial sector.
OK. We don't have that much time left. I'm just going to... You wanted as well, we were talking about rows in the Dáil, but you also wanted to remind us of a row from the world of sport.
Well, the FAI always manages, even on a lower level now, to get rows going on all the time. And it was remarkable to see that Vera Pauw brings the Irish football team to the first ever World Cup in Australia, and then we get a situation where there's some disappointment perhaps with the way the team played and the results, and then is moved aside. Now there may have been other issues going on in the background. We see today Eileen Gleeson has been given the job after a series of good results since the World Cup was played. But I think it was very good for women's sport in Ireland. There's been a lot of things very positive. People like Katie McCabe is possibly the best footballer we have, male or female at present. And when you also see in other sports like Rashidat Al-Khairi, who has been tremendous as Olympic potential for next year, it has been a very, very good year for women's sport. And the big disappointment, I briefly have to say, the Rugby World Cup, to be so close against New Zealand, that could have been such a lift for the country.
One of the best matches, though.
Not when you don't win, though, Katie, is it?
No, not the one we didn't win, but the one we did win was one of the best matches. OK, time for just one last viral moment, and I'm going to go to you, Evelyn, because this was that moment on the BBC News. Let's have a look at presenter Mariam Mashiri.
Live from London, this is BBC News.
Now, we should say, she did explain afterwards, she was joking around with her production team there, and it just... Have you ever been caught like that, Evelyn?
No. But one thing, I'm glad there wasn't social media around when I started in 1988, because, you know, my earlier performances were a bit shocking, I think, but not in that way, but just... Well, one thing we're always trained is you're never safe, you know, around a live broadcast, sort of 10 minutes before and 10 minutes afterwards. You know, wait until you're on the bus or whatever to give out to yourself, because you're just never safe. I mean, I was years ago on Live at 3 with Derek and Thelma back in the day. A swan went berserk in the studio while I was giving the weather forecast. I think nowadays the camera would have turned on the swan, but we were trying to ignore it while this squeak. you know, what sound does the swan make, you know? And another time I didn't actually make it into the studio. I got locked in the loo beforehand. I had to be rescued by Sean Dignan. So, you know, my very, very first broadcast, though, on radio, I had the headphones, here's Evelyn Cusack, you know, the area forecast. And so I started up, blah, blah, blah. And then this music came through my ears. So I didn't know what to do. But so I did whip off the earphones and just continue. So, like, live broadcasting is very, very difficult at times.
The show must go on, though. The show goes on. Have you ever been caught, Matt?
Yes, but it don't sound like Alan Partridge in sort of saying things, but yeah, there was one time where unfortunately the mic was on and there was a string of expletives about members of our production team, which were broadcast.
Okay, I'll be checking that out on YouTube later on. Let's look forward, though, now, before we finish up tonight. What will be the big stories of 2024?
It's the elections next year is going to be the big thing. The elections, not just here in Ireland, but the local elections, the possibility of a general election, the European elections. So there's going to be a lot of political election talk, but then what's happening internationally. We could get a British general election as well, which could see Labour coming back into power, but particularly America. America is going to be the focus. So important, not just to America, but to us and the rest of the world. We have this situation whereby Joe Biden has done better perhaps than many people give him credit for, but his age is going to be a major factor. And again, there's an awful lot of propaganda being whipped up against him.
Could we have another Trump regime?
Yeah, it is possible. It seems unbelievable when you think of January 6th, that assault on democracy that day with the attack on Capitol Hill, when you think of all the things he has done in office and that the American people, despite the fact he's on trial for many things, could decide to re-elect him. Wow, that is just extraordinary.